Welcome back, students. So today we are going to see the concept of operator overloading in C++ language. So before going to exactly to understand the concept of operator overloading with the help of an example program, first we'll see what does an operator overloading means. So basically, as you are aware of the concept that C++ is an object-oriented programming language, and in that there is one concept called as polymorphism. So that polymorphism is actually a concept of object-oriented language. So what does it mean? Polymorphism is a something which can be exhibit in the multiple forms. Like if I say a normal example, a person is there, a person can be a brother, a person can be uh, a person can be a son, a person can be an husband, a person can be a friend. I mean, the same person is there, but the same person is performing different tasks. When the task is different, the workload will also be different. So that is how exactly a polymorphism means to. So here also in C++ language, the concept is implemented here for many things. So in that one, there is one concept called as operator overloading, and this operator overloading is also basically a concept of polymorphism. If you see, polymorphism basically are of two types. The one is compile time polymorphism and the other is runtime polymorphism. So now in this session we are learning only compile time polymorphism because the concept operator overloading is a part of compile time polymorphism. So here also the same operator, actually the main purpose of operator is to perform any kind of operation. Let us take an example of binary operator, any binary operator. So any binary operator means you can say like subtraction, addition, multiplication. What are their purpose? The main purpose is either to add, either to subtract two numbers, and that two numbers are basically primitive data types. Like if I used x is equals to 2, y is equals to 3, and if I add in the z, now this x and y are basically integers, and these integers are of primitive types. So that is how the role of operator, which is also there in C language, because these operators are basically are a part of C language. Even that can also be used, even that can also be used in C++. But apart from that basic operations, it can also perform some other operations. That means the same thing, the same operator is actually being performed in some other task. That is how the role of polymorphism is. So now we will be seeing that how does it works and how a different kind of operations can be performed with the help of the operator. So here, this operator overloading, apart from the primitive data type, it can also applicable on user-defined data, right? Because I said you just now that it is going performing primitive data type, but now it also been used for user-defined data type. So here, firstly, we will be learning on binary operators, then we'll learn on unary operators. If you know the differences between both of that, unary and binary, binary is something, as you know, that where we require two operands along with an operator, and unary operator is something which requires a single operand and single operator. Anyhow, all the arithmetic operators are binary operators here. So now we will be seeing the next point we will try to learn after after taking that program. So let's directly move on to the editor. So here I'll just take one program. So in this program, first I'll take a complex number. So for that I'll be creating one class called complex. In this complex class, I have to create the private members, right? So here I'll be taking private members int A and B, right? Now, as these are private members, so you cannot access this other than the class called complex. But we are using public members for that. In that we will be using public member function. So I'm just creating one member function, something to something to get the values of A and B to store in some other variables. So I'll just give a name called get values as a name here, as a name of function. And you know, this are basically of integer types. So here I have been created here. Now in this body of this function, the value of x is going to be whatever the we are reading, that value x is going to be stored in A, because directly you can't store it, right? Because the members are in private. So here the x value needs to be assigned into x, the x value needs to be assigned into A, and similarly the y value needs to be assigned into B, right? So I've just assigned this. Now I'm taking another function for display, or you can say like for print the values, right? So here I'm not taking any argument, but because we are just printing the numbers. So I'm using cout. As you know that it's a complex number, right? So how the complex number will be, it's a combination of real number plus an imaginary number. So for real number we have taken A, and for imaginary number we have taken B. So here I'm printing A, then as it needs to be displayed in the form of a complex number, so here I'll be just taking plus I, then the B has to be displayed, so I'm just using B here, right? So in this way, what is going to happen is the value of A plus I, and I can give a space here, right? And so that it needs to be printed in this way. So this is how I have created one function, and this is my class. Now what I have to do is I'm taking one function called as in function, oh sorry, main function. Then in the main function, what I'll do is, as you know, my class is complex. So for adding this, I require three objects. The one is to, the two is to get the values, and the third is to get the result. Now, this is the complex number, right? So here in C1, I have to use which function here? Get values, right? So get values I'm using, and now I'm passing two values. So I can just pass because it's an integer, right? So I have just taken 3 and 6, something like that. Again, for C2 dot, again the same function I'm using. What is that? Get values. So here I'm passing 4 comma something like, I can just give 7. Here I have just called these two functions. Now what I have to do here is I have passed two values for C1 as a complex number, C2 as an object. In both of the object, I pass the value of A and B, right? Now, I mean, how actually it has been taken, if you see this, it will be something like 3 plus, like as I'm going to represent this I. Now, what it will be, it will be 6, right? In this way it can be, right? And then what else we have? We have like this number, which is C2, what it is like 4 plus I, because it's an imaginary number, right? So 7. So this is how the two numbers have been given for the object C1 and C2. Now the thing is that I just needs to add C1 and C2. My question is here is, as I know that plus is something just to add two numbers, right? So if I take C1 plus C2, if I take C1 plus C2, will it be okay? It won't be okay. It is because this is not a primitive data type. So for that, because it's a complex number, so if you directly add C1 and C2, and if you're trying to store in C3, you can't get the value C3 there. You will get an error there. So for that purpose, what you have to do is you have to take a one function called as add. In this add function, you have to pass one of them, as you can have to take an object, the second one you have to take as an argument. Now, if you read out this line, what does it mean? That in the object C1, I'm taking an argument C2. That means I'm taking the value of C2 and I'm adding in C1, and whatever the result is there is going to be assigned into C3. This is how it works. So as you know that I have created a function called add. Now here I have to create one more add function, member function. Now this is add is something which is a complex number, right? So the return type is not a simple number, it's a complex number. So that's why the complex is what a return type, and add is a function. And in that one, now as you can see that we have been taken one argument, that is C2 as an argument. So as you know that C2 itself is a complex number, so I have to write as complex space C2, right? So this is how I have been taking the function. Now within this body, what I have to take is directly I just have to be assigned to C3, right? So for that, before that, as it's a function, I have to take one temporary variable, like I can take complex as temporary variable, because you know temporary variable itself should be a complex number. So that's why I define temporary as a complex number. Now in this one, what I have to do is, as a temporary is a complex number, so it can also contains a real number and also an imaginary number. So you know the real number is temp dot a, right? In this one, what I have to add is all the real numbers of C1 and C2. That means a I should use, then plus what I have to write here is I have to write for the b, I have to write for the C2, right? Now C2 is what a argument, right? So you can write as, instead of this you can just simply write C here, that's sufficient, and here C dot a, right? So what happens is, now you can see that this a is of complex number 1 and this a is of complex number 2, which ultimately adds and it stores in the real number of a temporary variable, which itself is a complex number. Now in the imaginary part of temporary variable, which is temp dot p, here what I'll take here is I'll just take an imaginary number of C1 along with an imaginary number of C2, right? Because C here is like a C2. Now, what happens is temporary variable got real and imaginary number, and the mean they have been added. And now finally what you have to do is it has to be stored in C3, right? As you can see in the function that it is been stored in C3. That means here I'm calling this function. So now I have to return this temporary variable. So I'm just writing return statement, and in this return, what I'm returning a temporary variable, because the return type itself is a complex number, right? So this complex number is going to be assigned into C3, right? So you can see that A is what 3, right? And this is what 4, 7. So this 7 will be stored in the temporary variable here, 3 plus 4, 7. And here it is 6 plus 7. That means 13 will be stored in temporary variable B. And you can, that finally will be stored in C3. So here you can going to get display the values here, so C1, C2, C3. So simply what you can do here is you can display the values of C1, C2 and C3. So here as you can see that C1 is which function you need to use, print, right? So I'm just writing print here. Then in the print function you can see that what is there? Is there any value? No. So there is no value here. So directly you can just take semicolon here, and you can also print C2. So here you can see that C2 has been taken, semicolon. Then finally you can take C3 here, right? Then again you can take semicolon, right? Then finally my return 0 statement, because it's an integer, expects an integer value. So this is how my program is. Now, as you know that we haven't taken it a header file, just I'll include this, right? So I'm just including this part. Then I'm using namespace, right? Yeah. So this is how my program is. Now I just wants to execute this. So for that, I'm just compiling it. I'm just writing a sample. Well, if you write sample, you may not get a proper one. I mean, it's already been there here already in my system. So let us just take another one like SAM. That's it I'm taking now. And C++ has been extension. Then I'm just saving it again. And here I'll get the result. So just I'll share you the screen here. You can now see the output screen. The problem here is in this output screen, basically what happens is we haven't taken endl here so that the every content should come into new line. So you can see C4. So let's take that. Then you'll get a clear idea basically that how does it works. So for that, just a small change is required here. In the form of display, here in print function, NL I'll be taking, that's it, so that it comes in a new line. So right, so just now again I'm executing this, compiling and running the code. Yeah, now I'll just share you the screen now. Yeah, you can see this 3 plus I6 is what C1, 4 plus I7 is what for C2, and this is C3. Now the main change is what we need to do here is we haven't did so far right now. So let's do that. So let's go to the editor again. In this one, what has happened is I have taken an add function, but will my operator overloading works here? No, because I haven't used this operator as a symbol for adding two complex number. Instead, I have written a function called add and I have performed all this operation. Now what happens in C++ is we have a mechanism that instead of writing this add, if I just write here as complex as an operator, then if I write plus, then what's going to happen is this can be as equivalent as an over function called add. Here also, wherever add is there, I just needs to change the name as complex, and here I'll be just writing plus. Now what we just did the changes, sorry, not complex, it's just operator. Okay, it is not complex, it is operator. Here also it's operator. We have to use operator function name. What is the name function name we have to use? Operator, then plus. So now this is like as equivalent as the previous function, which is add, right? So here C1 dot operator plus. So this operator plus is basically what happens generally is, see, whenever you give a name of function, the function should not have any symbol. But here in this operator, in this concept, plus, if you're using along with the name of operator, then it is valid in C++, and the same function, the same kind of operation, what we have performed previously in the function add, the same thing is going to be performed here as well. So you can use operator plus here. And to be simple, if you want to make it simple here, in this when the function is to be called, when operator now this is a function called operator, and what is this is how the function to be called. So when I need to call this operator function, if I directly write plus, if I don't want to use dot operator, simply if I write C1 plus C2, right? If I write C1 plus C2, it is as equivalent as using operator 1. That means here now this plus, basically previously it was used for just primitive data types, but now I'm using for complex number. But here, when I take the function definition, so this is the part of function definition. Here I have to use operator plus only, so that to indicate that I have used a concept of operator overloading. So this is exactly where the operator overloading concept has been taken. That means the same operator plus can also be used for two complex numbers, provided you have to use an operator symbol uh, and followed by the operator name, whatever the name is there, and that has to be used in the function definition of the given class. So this is how something you are being overloading an operator addition, right? So in this way we have achieved operator overloading. Now if you see, if you just if you just execute also, you'll get the same output as what we did previously also, right? So again, I have just compiled it and executed. So I'll just show you again. Now you can see that the same output you're getting here, just because you it is valid if you're using the operator as a name of function, right? So in this way, now this 3 plus I6 is one complex number, 4 plus I7 is another complex number, and then the two complex numbers are being added with the help of a temporary variable. A temporary variable stores the values of both the numbers, the real numbers and imaginary numbers of both the complex numbers C1 and C2, and finally that temporary variable is going to be assigned into another complex number, which is C3, where you're getting the values as 7 plus I13. So in this way, you are being achieving an operator overloading concept. Okay. I mean, you are achieving operator overloading, and this is how an operator overloading concept is, right? So that's why I said you that operator, if you see now the third point, because I said you that you can't understand exactly right now. So you can see, if you read out this third point is what, here we are using a function called operator function. Just now in the program also I shown you, right, that we are using operator function, operator followed by the plus symbol. So that is how a special task has been performed by an operator plus to add two complex numbers apart from adding the normal primitive data types. That is how, that means here now the plus operator is performing more than one kind of operations. That means it is achieving a concept of operator overloading. So this is how an operator overloading concept. And if you see the declaration and the definition of this, so as I said in our program previously, what we have written here is, here we have written return type, means we have written their complex operator. Operator symbol is what we have written plus over there. Argument list. What is the argument list? The second complex number, right? So that means, remember that we have only one argument, so that will be used in binary operator. And how you need to define the function, because here scope resolution operator, class name scope resolution operator is coming in definition. It is because it is coming because it is has been defined outside of the class. If you're defining inside of the class, so what you have to take is simply return type is, like in our example what we did, just I'll write here. So here in return type, what we have did there, complex we written, and the class name. Okay, so as we did inside, so there is no scope resolution operator we have taken. Now we have used operator, and what are the operator symbol we used there? We used as plus, right? And here argument list, what we have passed, we passed complex C, right? That is C2. Now this is how my function I have been taken, and this is on my function declaration. And this argument list is not required. Okay, that as we will see in the next session. for unary operator, but right now what we are focused is on only on binary operator overloading. So that's it for today's session. Hope you got this. It's very important. So in the next coming lecture, we'll try to see a next concept of this same thing for unary operator overloading. Till then, just stick on to this, try to understand it, because if you will understand this, it will be easy for you that you can understand the next concept. Okay, so if you have any queries, you can post me on through comment box. I'll be responding to that. Okay, so hope you got this video. If you have any queries, you can ask me. Okay, so till then, have a nice day. Thank you.